Prosecutors are more than just case processors, for sure. They include speaking out relative to social matters. In the state of Oregon, for example, right now, quite literally, we have a ballot measure that's trying to take us back to the 70s and remove our sanctuary state status relative to immigration conversations. There are a lot of people, it's hotly contested, and there are a lot of people standing on the sidelines, and I think that it's time for individuals, whomever they are, and especially leaders and prosecutors, for example, to stand up and not stand down and say things such as, I am against going back to the 70s where immigration was dealt with differently than it is now in the state of Oregon, where local law enforcement was out and doing that body of work and from my view, placing a chilling effect on victims of crime and unfair treatment as it relates to individuals whose status is undocumented at the time. So myself and some prosecutors in the state of Oregon stand up. We write op-eds and we place our names in support of efforts to not have that type of law rolled back. That's the kind of thing that we need to be doing. That's just an example. On the national front, we need to step up and not stand down when it comes to hearing hate speech, racism-based speech, xenophobic or misogynistic speech, and say those things to our local community that I do not support nor agree with some of the things that we hear from around the country.
We've had external sort of challenges in the city of Baltimore. I'm sure that you all are aware of the GTTF scandal, one of the largest police corruption scandals in the history of this country, where several officers, they're actually being federally prosecuted as of today. Some of them, where the police officers were essentially putting masks on their face, breaking into people's homes, targeting black men with backpacks and planting drugs and guns. There's accusations of individuals being killed. After the uprising, these same detectives were involved with obtaining the prescription drugs out of some of the places that were looted, the pharmacies that were looted, and then redistributing those drugs. So as you can imagine, that has also had an impact on my office. And what we've attempted to do, and it hasn't been out of my conviction integrity unit, but it has been out of my office, is make an analysis, an assessment about thousands of cases that are now impacted. And because of the testimony that has come out as a result of this federal police corruption scandal, which goes all the way back to some instances in 2005, 2008, thousands and thousands of cases, well, thousands, I wouldn't say thousands and thousands, but about 1,600 cases have been impacted. That requires us, as the state's attorney's office, to have to go through those cases, because what we're dealing with is not just the credibility of the officers and whether they were a material witness in the case. Some of these guys are really bad guys that they were putting away, right? So in order for us to, we can't just with a broad sweep of a brush say any case involving these officers we're going to get rid of, because some of them have pled guilty. You now have to file motions to vacate the judgments. We've made a very sort of specific and particular sort of assessment about each of those cases and the materiality of those officers, because it's a matter of public safety in some instances. So if that officer was a material witness, we're not moving forward with that case. We're going to go in if we have to, and we've, no pros, got rid of a number of pending and open cases, hundreds. Now what we're doing is going back to when we know that these officers were involved in criminality and making that assessment as to their materiality. I've instructed my attorneys that they are not to ask for bail amounts. Either this person is a flight risk or danger to the community, or this person should be released on their own recognizance. And so we're not going to fund the bail industry, who has disproportionately impacted poor people. And as I stated before, in Baltimore City, 24% of our population lives in poverty. So this is something that, again, is not necessarily or traditionally the role that a prosecutor would take, or a stance that we would take, but one in which I think is important to send a message. to the community. What we've attempted to do in my office is we've increased the grant funding by more than 31%. We got the largest federal grant we've ever received for victim witness services. We just found out 2 days ago it was $2.4 million, which allowed us to double the size of the victim witness unit. We doubled the number of advocates within our division. We were able to renovate the victim witness waiting room into a therapeutic space. But we also just found out that we got $1.7 million a year on top of the 2.4. So altogether in the past 4 years, when you put it together, it will be $5.8 million, right, that we did not otherwise have. And what you can do utilizing those grant funds is to show the metrics of success. So we can then go before the city council or the state legislators and say, this is how this has been helpful towards reducing crime or getting victim witness cooperation. So I'm really, really excited because I did just find out about that additional grant, which is going to allow us to actually start a campaign. If you all are familiar with Baltimore City, you know that we're the home of witness intimidation, where the stop, snitch, and mentality began. And I'm really excited. I haven't announced it yet, but we are starting a campaign that is going to push against that culture. And we're doing that through the grant funds that we were able to apply for. In addition to the grant funds that are clearly something that prosecutors can apply for, you talked about the need to have public-private partnerships. One of the programs that we have in the summertime, what we saw is we looked at the data and we looked at the crime trends, and we saw that on Friday nights between the hours of 6 and 9, there's a drastic increase in youth violence. So again, rather than being reactive, we wanted to be proactive, and what we started was a program that is similar to what they do in Manhattan, the Friday Night Lights. Essentially, we started Baltimore pop-up events. You text a certain number, you find out the event for these young folks the day before. It changes throughout the city, and we provide recreational opportunities for young people for free and provide them food and services that they wouldn't otherwise have. And they find out the day before, and it pops up. And we did that with the public-private partnerships. And because we started it and we didn't have the resources to be able to do it, it was us reaching out to, various organizations to say, hey, will you partner with us? Can you help us? Some of the people within my office were actually paying for these young people to eat, right? And so we were able to develop metrics of success. And now what we were able to do is that we have a recast grant that we've applied for. We have a youth coordinator that is actually works in my office, a social worker that came out of that grant, and the resources to be able to pay for these pop-up events, because we do it in the summertime when we like to complain about young people not having much to do, every Friday night. And so I think that the easy way, because you're not going to automatically go in with these innovative ideas and have the resources to be able to do it, but if you can develop some sort of metrics of success, that helps you in the long term to be able to get those general funds to be able to do it.